You're blasting Johnson squad out of that house, Lieutenant.
And those juries will be right on his tail.
Runt, bring that gun up here with me.
You men over there! Cover him! Give him fire!
The night Audie Murphy died, everyone thought he died a pauper. What they didn't know was that Audie Murphy had not totally squandered all of his wealth. Even though his divorce had cost him a fortune, and he had made some bad financial investments with a lot of debt hanging around, something unexpected happened. Something that changed everything and made his entire family become millionaires. What was this unexpected twist of fate and fortune? Join us in this video as we dive into the details. More than his lifetime, Audie Murphy's ironic fortune at death. By 1961, Audie Murphy had already lived several lifetimes in one. Widely recognized as the most decorated American combat soldier of World War II, Murphy's courage on the battlefield made history. He was more than just a soldier. He became a living legend, the most highly decorated enlisted soldier the United States has ever seen. In 1949, he married actress Wanda Hendricks. But the marriage was troubled and short-lived, and they officially divorced in 1951. Just 4 days later, Murphy married Pamela Opal Lee Archer, a former airline stewardess. Together, they had 2 sons, Terry Michael and James Shannon. Murphy found peace in raising quarter horses. He owned 2 ranches, one in Menifee, California, and another in Pima County, Arizona. His horses even raced at Del Mar Racetrack, a passion he poured money into, sometimes at great cost. Unfortunately, Murphy also struggled with gambling and risky investments, which took a serious toll on his finances. By 1968, he had lost a staggering $260,000 in a failed Algerian oil venture and was in conflict with the IRS over unpaid taxes. Despite these setbacks, he held on to his values. He refused to appear in commercials for alcohol or cigarettes, not wanting to influence young fans in the wrong way. However, on May 28, 1971, tragedy struck when Audie Murphy met his end in a plane crash in the mountains of Virginia. The private aircraft, a twin-engine Aero Commander 680, went down in heavy rain and dense fog, with zero visibility. The crash site was about 14 nautical miles northwest of Roanoke, and sadly, all 6 people on board, including Murphy, the pilot, and 4 other passengers, lost their lives. Though the pilot had logged around 8,000 hours of flight time, he held no instrument rating, meaning he wasn't certified to fly in such poor weather conditions. This meant that the flight company could not pay liabilities. The wreckage and bodies were located on May 31st of that year. Back home, Audie's widow, Pamela Murphy, was left to rebuild life without him. She quietly moved into a small apartment and took a humble job as a clerk at the Sepulveda Veterans Administration Hospital in Los Angeles. There she worked for the next 35 years, known and respected for her quiet dignity and dedication to fellow veterans. On June 7, 1971, Audie Murphy was laid to rest with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery. The ceremony was attended by dignitaries such as U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations George H.W. Bush, Army Chief of Staff General William Westmoreland, and many members of Murphy's old unit, the 3rd Infantry Division. His grave, located in Section 46, is marked by headstone number 46-366-11 and sits just across Memorial Drive from the cemetery's amphitheater. A special flagstone walkway was added later to handle the constant flow of visitors who come to pay their respects. To this day, Murphy's gravesite is the 2nd most visited at Arlington, just behind that of President John F. Kennedy, a quiet yet powerful reminder of how deeply Audie Murphy's courage, humility, and sacrifice continue to resonate with generations of Americans. In 1974, a large granite marker was placed near the crash site. The following year, in 1975, luck smiled on Murphy's family, and a court awarded $2.5 million in damages to Pamela Murphy and her 2 children in response to the fatal accident. Audie Murphy continued to receive recognition even after his death. Decades later, in 2013, his home state of Texas posthumously awarded him the Texas Legislative Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration the state can bestow. So, in passing, Audie left a legacy that was worth more than his entire lifetime earnings. How did Audie Murphy build up such a legacy? How did he rise to become the most decorated soldier the United States had ever seen? Keep watching to find out. Audie Murphy's tragic early life. Audie Murphy was born on the 20th of June 1925 in Kingston, a tiny farming town tucked away in Hunt County, northeastern Texas. He was the 7th of 12 children born to Emmett and Josie Murphy, a struggling sharecropper couple of English, Irish, Scottish, and German roots. Life was tough from the start. Though the Army would later list his birth year as 1924, evidence from friends, records, and Murphy himself confirms it was actually 1925. From a young age, Audie was quiet, intense, and had a temper. He grew up moving around the rural towns of Farmersville, Greenville, and Celeste, where he attended elementary school until he couldn't anymore. His father was in and out of their lives, eventually disappearing for good. With no one else to depend on, Audie left school in the 5th grade. At just 10 years old, he began working in the cotton fields, earning $1 a day. To keep food on the table, he taught himself how to shoot, often bringing home small game to feed his younger siblings. Then came the blow that changed everything. In 1941, his mother, Josie, fell terribly ill and was diagnosed with endocarditis and pneumonia. She could not survive the illness. Before her passing, she had been the anchor of the family, and her passing was not just devastating. It would set the pace for the next phase of Audie's life. Because Audie was just 16 at the time and had nowhere to turn, local authorities sent his 3 youngest siblings to a Christian orphanage in Quinlan called Bowles Children's Home, and Audie, barely more than a child himself, took whatever jobs he could, fixing radios, working at a local general store and gas stations to stay afloat. Years later, after returning home from the war as a national hero, he'd buy a house in Farmersville for his eldest sister, Corinne, and her husband. His siblings would come together again under that roof. But the loss of his mother would haunt him for the rest of his life. So, how did life shape this orphan boy into a national war hero? Let's find out together. Becoming a soldier. Audie Murphy's military journey begins. After the attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941, 16-year-old Audie Murphy was determined to join the fight. But there was a problem. He was too young and too small. The Army, Navy, and Marine Corps all turned him away, saying he didn't meet the weight requirements. But Audie didn't give up. With help from his older sister, he falsified his birth date by a year, making him officially 18. On June 30th, 1942, the U.S. Army finally let him in. Years later, Murphy would joke about the fib, saying, "The doctor back home couldn't remember exactly when I was born, so I was 18." He began his military journey at Camp Walters, Texas, for basic training, followed by advanced infantry training at Fort Meade, Maryland. During this time, he stood out, not for his size, but for his skill. He was determined to make his mark indeed. He earned the Marksman Badge for rifle shooting and the Expert Badge for bayonet training. Done with training, Murphy shipped out on February 20th, 1943, landing in Casablanca, Morocco. His bravery immediately stood out, and Murphy quickly moved up the ranks. Promoted to Private First Class in May, and then corporal in July. When the Allies stormed the beaches of Licata, Sicily, on July 10th, Murphy went in with them. By then, he had become a division runner, risking his life to carry messages across dangerous front lines. This was just the beginning of his legendary combat record, a path that would take him from the Mediterranean to the heart of Europe and into the pages of history. Audie Murphy's first real taste of combat came during a scouting patrol near Canicattì, Sicily. It was there that he shot and killed 2 fleeing Italian officers, his first confirmed kills in a war that would soon test every ounce of his courage. In September 1943, tragedy struck. Murphy took part in Operation Avalanche, the fierce Allied landing at Salerno on Italy's mainland. During a patrol along the Volturno River, he and 2 fellow soldiers were suddenly ambushed by German machine gunners, and one of his comrades was killed instantly. Murphy and the other survivor fought back with grenades and gunfire, killing 5 German soldiers. It was a brutal but defining moment, one that showed his ability to stay calm and lethal under fire. But this was just the beginning. During another Allied assault on the Volturno line near Mignano Montelungo, Murphy's company was again attacked by a squad of 7 German soldiers. He helped repel the assault, killing 3 enemies and capturing the other 4, bringing much dread to the Germans. His bravery and leadership didn't go unnoticed. On December 13, 1943, he was promoted to sergeant. By January 1944, he was promoted again, this time to the rank of staff sergeant. But war took its toll, and that same month, he fell ill with malaria and was hospitalized in Naples, missing the initial landing at Anzio, one of the war's most dangerous beachheads. Still, Murphy was never gone for long. He rejoined his unit on January 29th and soon fought in the First Battle of Cisterna, one of the bloodiest and most chaotic encounters in Italy. His performance in battle earned him a new role, platoon sergeant of Company B. For the next 4 months, the 3rd Division was stuck at Anzio, enduring harsh conditions and constant threat. On March 2nd, Murphy and his platoon took shelter in an abandoned farmhouse. When a German tank rolled past, they sprang into action. They killed the tank's crew, and then, without waiting for backup, Murphy crawled alone through the mud and rubble until he was close enough to launch rifle grenades and destroyed the tank by himself. For this act of fearless courage, he was awarded the Bronze Star with a V device, recognizing his valor in combat. Was he invincible or simply fearless? What victories lay ahead for this young soldier? Keep watching to find out. Wounded but unstoppable. The heroic acts of Audie Murphy. Despite the near-death encounters, Audie Murphy wasn't done yet. He kept leading scouting patrols to capture German prisoners, pushing forward despite exhaustion and risk. But the war was taking its toll. On March 13, 1944, he was hospitalized again, this time for a second painful bout of malaria. After a week, he was back on his feet, still determined to stand with his men. On May 8th, Murphy and 60 other infantrymen from Company B, 15th Infantry, were awarded the Combat Infantryman Badge, a mark of honor for soldiers who had seen direct ground combat. Not long after, he earned a Bronze Oak Leaf Cluster, signaling his second Bronze Star for bravery. When American forces liberated Rome on June 4, 1944, it was a turning point. For a brief moment, Murphy and his platoon were able to breathe. They remained stationed near the city through July, taking much-needed rest before the next storm. But fate had more battles for them. A storm was coming, and that storm hit in August. Murphy was part of the first wave of the Allies launching an invasion into southern France. And on August 15th, during the landings near Ramatuelle, His platoon came under sudden, intense enemy fire as they moved through a vineyard. A machine gun had become separated from its squad. While chaos broke out around him, Murphy grabbed it, turned it on the enemy, and killed 2 German soldiers, wounding another. Then came a moment that would haunt him for life. 2 German soldiers emerged from a nearby house, appearing to surrender. Believing that they had truly surrendered, Murphy's best friend moved toward them to disarm them, but they quickly grabbed their weapons and shot him dead. In a surge of grief and fury, Murphy charged the house alone, even as bullets flew around him. He killed 6 enemy soldiers, wounded 2 more, and captured 11. For that act of sheer bravery, he was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, the Army's 2nd highest military decoration for valor. Later in August, Murphy took part in the offensive at Montélimar, helping secure the area from German control. The entire unit was awarded the Presidential Unit Citation, recognizing their collective courage under fire. But danger never stopped coming. On September 15th, while fighting in northeastern France, Murphy was hit by mortar shrapnel. His first Purple Heart came from a deep heel wound. Still, he refused to back down. Then, on October 2nd, near the Lomet quarry in the Clury Valley, Murphy once again turned the tide of battle. Under relentless fire, he charged a German machine gun nest, killing 4 and wounding 3. That courageous act earned him his first Silver Star, one of the military's most revered awards for gallantry in action. How long were these successes going to last? How much longer until this hero met his Waterloo? Let's see. For King and Country, Audie Murphy's indomitable acts of bravery. Just 3 days after his daring assault at Lomet Quarry, Murphy once again showed the kind of bravery few could imagine. Crawling alone across open ground under direct enemy fire, he carried only an SCR 536 radio and sheer determination. For a full hour, he directed his men in battle, lying flat as German bullets tore through the air around him. When it was finally over, his platoon had taken the hill. 15 German soldiers lay dead, and 35 more were wounded. Murphy's leadership and bravery earned him a 2nd Silver Star, signified by a bronze oak leaf cluster. It was becoming clear. This young man was more than a good soldier. He was a battlefield legend in the making. However, calamity lurked. On October 14, 1944, Murphy was promoted to 2nd lieutenant, a battlefield commission that made him a platoon leader at just 19 years old. But with leadership came even greater danger. Just 12 days later, on October 26th, as he and his platoon were heading toward the town of Bruvalura, they were ambushed by a German sniper team. Murphy managed to capture 2 of the enemy, but then he was shot in the hip. Incredibly, even while wounded, he raised his weapon and took out the sniper with a shot right between the eyes. His injuries were serious. At a hospital in Aix-en-Provence, doctors had to remove gangrenous tissue from the wound, which led to permanent muscle loss in his hip. He would be sidelined from combat until January 1945. For his injury, he was awarded another Purple Heart, marked by his first bronze oak leaf cluster. While Murphy recovered, German forces were holding tight to an 850-square-mile stronghold in the Vosges Mountains, known as the Colmar Pocket. It had been under their control since November 1944, and it was key to halting the Allied advance. By January 14, 1945, Murphy had healed enough to rejoin his platoon, now stationed in the frozen countryside near Colmar. 10 days later, on January 24th, he moved with the 3rd Infantry Division into the town of Holzwihr, where they encountered heavy German resistance. Murphy was once again wounded, this time in both legs, yet he stayed with his men. He was awarded another Purple Heart, his second bronze oak leaf cluster. Then came January 26th, a day that would etch Murphy's name forever in American military history. His commanding officer had just been wounded, and Murphy, still only 19, was placed in charge of Company B. At 2:00 p.m., the enemy launched a fierce counterattack with infantry and armored tanks. Murphy ordered his men to retreat to their defensive positions while he stayed behind to direct fire. Suddenly, a German shell struck a nearby M10 tank destroyer, setting it ablaze. Its crew scrambled for safety, leaving behind the smoking metal beast, still loaded with ammunition. And Murphy? He wasn't done yet. While his men pulled back to safer ground on his orders, he stayed behind, alone, to hold the line. With his M1 carbine in one hand and a field radio in the other, he began calling in artillery strikes, guiding the fire with pinpoint accuracy as bullets tore through the cold air around him. The Germans quickly realized who was directing the barrage and focused their fire on him. Then, in a moment almost too cinematic to believe, Murphy climbed onto the burning wreck of an M10 tank destroyer, its metal hissing and groaning with flames. From there, he manned the .50 caliber machine gun and unleashed a storm of bullets on the advancing enemy. He spotted a full German squad creeping toward him through a ditch and mowed them down. Tank shells exploded nearby. Small arms fire peppered the area. But Murphy didn't flinch. For a full hour he stood on top of that burning tank, wounded and exposed, gunning down German soldiers. By the time he ran out of ammo, he had killed or wounded an estimated 50 enemy troops, all on his own. Bleeding and exhausted, he finally rejoined his men, not to rest, but to lead them. Limping and injured, he organized a counterattack that drove the enemy back. And when medics tried to evacuate him, Murphy refused to leave. He insisted on staying with his men until every last threat was gone. For that incredible act of valor, Audie Murphy was awarded the Medal of Honor, the highest military award in the United States. His unit, the 3rd Infantry Division, also received the Presidential Unit Citation for its bravery at the Colmar Pocket. For Murphy, that meant a bronze oak leaf cluster to add to the citation he had already earned. On February 16, 1945, just weeks after his legendary stand, he was promoted to first lieutenant. He also received the Legion of Merit, recognizing his exceptional leadership and service from January 1944 through February 1945. After all he had endured, he was finally pulled from the front lines and assigned to regimental headquarters as a liaison officer. His war-fighting days were over, but the story of what he had done would echo forever. How did the world honor this hero of World War II? And at what personal costs were these victories to Audie Murphy? Let's find out. The price of heroism. Audie Murphy's honors and demons. After all he had given, Audie Murphy came home not just as a survivor, but as a symbol of courage, sacrifice, and quiet strength. The list of awards he received is staggering and deeply earned. From the United States, he received the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest military award presented for his fearless actions at Holzweiler. The Legion of Merit, recognizing exceptional service and leadership. The American Campaign Medal. The European, African, Middle Eastern Campaign Medal with a bronze arrowhead for assault landings and 9 campaign stars for every major battle he fought. The World War II Victory Medal. The Army of Occupation Medal with the Germany clasp. But it wasn't just his own country that honored him. France, grateful for his bravery on their soil, awarded Murphy some of their highest distinctions, including the Legion of Honor, grade of Chevalier, Knight, 2 Croix de Guerre, one with a silver star, the other with a palm. The French Liberation Medal, the French Fourragère, worn in honor by all members of the 3rd Infantry Division who fought in France. Belgium also recognized his heroism, awarding him the Belgian Croix de Guerre with 1940 palm. The man who had once been turned away for being too small had become one of the most decorated soldiers in American history, receiving every combat valor award the U.S. Army could give. Murphy's war was over, but the next chapter of his life, filled with new battles and quiet burdens, was just beginning. On June 8, 1945, just weeks after the war in Europe ended, Audie Murphy was one of several decorated soldiers ordered back to the U.S. for reassignment. By June 13th, he arrived at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, Texas. Along with 3 others, he was assigned to the Army Ground and Services Redistribution Station and sent home on a 30-day leave to rest and recover. For a while, life felt like a celebration. Parades were held in his honor. There were banquets, speeches, standing ovations. America was welcoming home a war hero, and Murphy, still just 20 years old, was at the center of it all. On August 21st, he was awarded a Good Conduct Medal, and just a month later, on September 21, 1945, he was officially discharged from active duty as a first lieutenant. The Army gave him a 50% disability rating, and he was transferred to the Officers Reserve Corps. But while the public saw a clean-cut hero, Murphy carried invisible scars. After the war, he battled deep insomnia, depression, and haunting flashbacks. He couldn't sleep through the night without a loaded pistol under his pillow, his subconscious still on alert. By 1947, a military medical exam revealed what he couldn't always put into words: severe headaches, vomiting, and terrifying nightmares that replayed the battlefield in his mind. Sleeping pills became a nightly necessity to escape it all. As the years passed, those struggles didn't go away, they got worse. In the mid-1960s, Murphy realized he had become dependent on a powerful sedative called Placidil. Rather than let it control him, he made a bold, painful decision. He checked into a hotel room alone and locked himself away for a full week, going cold turkey to beat the addiction. And he did. Still, the emotional weight of combat never truly left. His innate moodiness, already part of his quiet nature, grew more intense. Friends and colleagues saw moments where the war resurfaced in sudden, disturbing ways. His first wife, actress Wanda Hendricks, would later say that during their short and troubled marriage, Murphy once pointed a gun at her in a flash of instability. And in another heartbreaking moment, she recalled watching him cry uncontrollably while watching newsreel footage of German war orphans. Proof that guilt and grief lingered behind the medals. Murphy sought ways to channel his pain. For a time, he turned to writing. One of his most haunting poems, The Crosses Grow on Anzio, reflected the sorrow and sacrifice he had witnessed in Italy. Though the poem appeared in his memoir To Hell and Back, it was credited to a fictional character named Kerrigan, perhaps Murphy's way of distancing himself from the raw emotions it held. For all his fame and honors, Audie Murphy was a man carrying an enormous burden. And like so many veterans, the war he fought overseas never truly ended. It just followed him home, quietly and relentlessly. Long before the term PTSD entered the public vocabulary, Audie Murphy was already living with it and courageously speaking out. He didn't hide behind his fame. Instead, he used it to shine a light on something too many tried to ignore: the emotional wounds of war. Back then, what we now call post-traumatic stress disorder was known only as battle fatigue or shell shock, terms carried over from World War I. But Murphy gave it a real human face. He openly admitted his own struggles, hoping it would give others the courage to do the same. He urged the U.S. government to take the emotional trauma of combat seriously, to study it more deeply, and provide better mental health care for returning veterans, especially those from Korea and Vietnam, who were quietly suffering. Murphy didn't live to see the full impact of his advocacy. He died in 1971. But just 5 months later, U.S. Congressman Olin Teague introduced legislation in his honor. 2 years later, in 1973, the Audie L. Murphy Memorial VA Hospital was officially dedicated in San Antonio. Today, it stands as part of the South Texas Veterans Healthcare System, continuing his legacy of care and compassion for those who served. What was the latter part of his life like? Like a hero? Keep watching to find out. Winding down, a soldier turned actor. Though his heart was still with the military, the demands of Hollywood eventually pulled Audie Murphy in a different direction. Audie Murphy's journey into Hollywood began with a magazine cover. In July 1945, the world saw Murphy's face on the cover of Life magazine, labeled America's Most Decorated Soldier. That issue caught the attention of actor and producer James Cagney, who invited Murphy to Hollywood. Cagney and his brother signed Murphy to their production company and enrolled him in classes to develop his acting, voice, and dance skills. Despite the investment, the Cagney brothers never cast him in a film. A personal disagreement in 1947 ended the partnership. Determined not to give up, Murphy found new support. He worked with Estelle Harmon, a respected acting coach, and practiced his diction by reciting lines from Shakespeare and William Saroyan. In the meantime, he lived modestly at Terry Hunt's athletic club in Hollywood while trying to break into the industry. It was a screenwriter named David "Spec" McClure who helped open the next door. The two became close friends and eventually co-authored Murphy's 1949 memoir, To Hell and Back. McClure used his Hollywood connections to get Murphy a $500 bit part in the film Texas, Brooklyn and Heaven, 1948, Murphy's first taste of life in front of the camera. By then, Murphy was already dating actress Wanda Hendricks, whom he met in 1946. Through her talent agent, he landed a small role in Beyond Glory, alongside Alan Ladd and directed by John Farrow. Murphy's big break came in 1949, when he starred in Bad Boy, his first leading role. It was the moment he truly stepped out of the shadow of war and into the world of movies. Though not a musician himself, Murphy had a love for country music, especially Bob Wills and Chet Atkins. His interest in poetry surfaced when David McClure, co-author of To Hell and Back, found verses Murphy had written. One of them, The Crosses Grow on Anzio, appears in the book under a pseudonym. Two other poems, Alone and Far Removed, and Freedom Flies in Your Heart Like an Eagle, also survived. The latter became a song called Dusty Old Helmet, set to music by Scott Turner. Turner and Murphy became songwriting partners from 1962 to 1970, creating several songs including Shutters and Boards and When the Wind Blows in Chicago, both of which found success in the country music world. What do you think about Audie Murphy's fortune? Let us know in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video shown on your screen to catch up on your favorite celebrity stories. See you there.